Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you know that I have started a series in which I am going to show how I read with multiple cards together in small spreads, which is unusual for me, if you know me, and keeping it light and simple. And I'm going to be reading it in these spreads in two ways. Yes, I'm going to go through the spread once in fairly common ways of looking at and interpreting the cards. The way that I teach my students, my beginning students, to read a spread. And we'll look at different kinds of small spreads. We'll start looking at maybe spreads with positions somewhere in a month maybe or two. So I'll do a really short, sweet, standard reading of the cards. And then I'm going to do a second reading of the cards in which I will apply the more esoteric elements that I have rediscovered for myself and which I described in my series called Walking the Lines of Origins to Deeper Strata, with the subtitle of Peeling Back the Symbolic Palimpsests. And there's a whole series on my channel. If you want to go check it out, go do that. Maybe I'll put a card up here for the first introduction video of that series. But that's what we're going to do today. Yes, this is the second video of this series. So, before we begin, let me say thank you. Thank you for doing all of those things that you do. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up button and for subscribing and hitting that alarm bell so that you get notifications. Those things that you do help other people find us, and our community grows because of you, and for that I am deeply grateful. I'm also deeply grateful to anybody and everybody who comments in the comment section, because I love hearing from you. And it also helps the algorithm, but I really love hearing from you. And so thank you. And thank you for joining me on this journey. Thank you for joining me as I explore ways of reading cards for myself and for you. I hope it's meaningful for you. I hope it is beneficial for you and your reading practice. So, friends, I've got a spread for you. I'm using the same decks that I used last week. I'm probably going to continue using these two decks for at least the rest of this lunar cycle. And the two decks I'm primarily focusing on are the Morning Calm Oracle, and I'll have a link in the description box below for you to get this deck. I highly recommend this oracle. It's beautiful, especially when used with another Korean tarot deck, just saying, but it works for other decks too. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful oracle. Beautiful art. And the tarot deck I'm using, the primary deck, is the beautiful Korea Tarot. Now, that tarot is only, to my knowledge, available here in Korea. And unless you speak Korean, it could be difficult for you to order that deck. But if you want, I can help you order it. An alternative, I will actually be showing you the alternative deck. The Beautiful Korea Tarot is actually based on the Tarot of the Old Path, which is available mass market all around the world. So I'll put a link in the description box to that one, and I'll show you the Beautiful Korea Tarot and the Tarot of the Old Path together so you can see and compare. They're very, very similar. There are several striking differences, but they are very, very similar. Color palette is similar. The design is basically similar with a cultural shift. Yes? And there will be a link in the description box if you want to get the Tarot of the Old Path. Again, if you want the Beautiful Korea Tarot, contact me. I will help you if you want help. Okay, so friends, what are we going to do? I am going to show you the spread. Then I'm going to show you the comparison of the Tarot of the Old Path and the beautiful Korea Tarot, and then we will start reading the spread. Okay, friends? So, let me show you the spread right now. Aren't those beautiful cards? I think these decks are all beautiful. And I highly recommend all of them. Yes? And really, would be honored if I could help you get yourself a copy of the beautiful Korea Tarot. Again, I love them. I love them. I love them. But let's start off with the Oracle card. Yes, we'll look at the Oracle card first, and then we're going to move into the Tarot cards, and then I'll show you a comparison of the beautiful Korea Tarot and the Tarot of the Old Path. Okay, so this Oracle card, fabulous. There are 7 sigil cards in the Morning Calm Oracle, which is wonderful. And before I start talking, let me give you a full disclosure. Yes? I am not, nor do I claim to be, an expert on Korean shamanism or Korean esoterica. I know some stuff, but I'm not an expert. Yes. The creator of this deck, I do know, is a Korean American. I'm not sure if she was born in Korea and moved to the United States as an infant or a child, or if she was born in the United States, but she is Korean American, and she was initiated into a shamanistic tradition, which is how you become a shaman. You have to be initiated. And there's a whole selection process here in Korea. First, you are supposed to have the spirit sickness, and that's a whole other thing. Anyways, let's not get into that. But there are some things that she represents in this deck that, for me, are not as Korean as I wish they would be. For example, that being said, I am not saying that I am right and she is wrong. Yes? I don't know. Her tradition, I don't know her tradition. Maybe there's another tradition that I'm not aware of that is Korean shamanistic, but the esoterica and the Korean shamanism that I know of, which is not complete, is different from some of the stuff that I see in this deck. Yes? For example, there's a card in the deck which is for Guan Yin. And the title of the card is Guan Yin. Wonderful. However, the Korean name for Guan Yin is Guan or the long form, Gwanseum Bosal. Yes? And I wish the Korean name were on the card. I just wish that were true. But interestingly enough, in the sigil cards, each one of the sigils points toward an element and a god or a spirit. One of the sigils points to Guan, and it has Guan on that card in Hangul, in Korean letters. But in the English letters on the Guan card, it's Guan Yin. So for me, it's just a little personal, I wish. Yes? Why am I talking about this? This card. Okay, so each one of the sigil cards has a color. You can see this one's green. Has a spirit. And has an element, but actually, it says it's an element, but actually they're days of the week, if you ask me. They're days of the week and planets. Why do I say that? Well, because there are 5 elements in East Asian philosophy. Western, we have 4. plus a fifth sometimes, right? The four: fire, water, air, earth, and then maybe ether. In Eastern philosophy, we have fire, water. Then we have wood. She says plant and something else, but plant, wood. Yeah, I translate it to wood. Metal or gold, and then earth. Now, fire, water, earth, fire, water, wood, metal, earth are the five elements in Eastern Asia. Now, she associated this color. Now, let me tell, okay, so the traditional colors for those five elements, it's called obangsek in Korean, just means the five colors, obangsek, are black, blue, red, white, and black. There's no green. Yeah? Black is fire, believe it or not, fire, and that relates to Mars. Blue is water, and that relates to Mercury. Red is wood. Yes, red is wood, not green. Red is wood, and that relates to Jupiter. White is metal, and that relates to Venus. Yellow is earth, not green, but yellow is earth, and that relates to Saturn. Yeah? Now, side note, something I've really realized and I've investigated even more recently that has surprised me deeply and points towards, I think, a very ancient source of all of our culture, including maybe astronomy, is that the days of the weeks are all the same across Latin, ancient Roman Latin, Greek, ancient Greek, not modern Greek, but ancient Greek, Chinese, Korean, and I've discovered Thailand. They're all the same. All the same planets in the same order. Isn't that fascinating? What is that order? Well, let's start off with the sun. Sun, moon, then it's Lunadi, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn. Isn't that interesting? In Italian, okay, so I know Italian, and in modern Romance languages, the sun and moon associations have changed to something else. But in Latin, they started off with Sunday being the sun. I'm sorry, no, I made a mistake. So in modern Italian and in the Romance languages, Sunday and Saturday have changed. Yes, Sunday and Saturday. But before Christianization, they were the same. Yeah, Sunday was a Sunday. Then Monday, lunedì, luna, moon. Martedì, Mars for Tuesday. Wednesday, mercoledì, Mercury, mercoledì. Giovedì for Thursday. Giove, Jupiter, Jove, Thursday. Venerdì, Venus, venerdì. And then Saturn would be that last one. Yes? All the same. Across all of those languages and all of that land. Now, I don't know about African languages. I don't know about traditional indigenous American languages or indigenous Pacific Island, Oceania languages. But across all of Eurasia, it looks like they were all the same. Now, okay, so the gods for the Celts and the Vikings, I haven't studied those and if they were associated with the planets the same way. But that's a lot of people using the same associations, right? In the same order. Fascinating. Okay, so anyways, getting back to this. So this card is associated with, if you look at the center, this card is associated with Sanshin. Now the Korean letters in the center, the very center box says Sanshin, that's Hangul, and Sanshin is the mountain spirit. And if you recall from last week, that one of the oracle cards we got was the mountain spirit, repeated here. Interesting. And if you recall, Sanshin, the mountain spirit, is one of the highest spirit gods of Korean shamanism. There is a pecking order. There is a hierarchy to the gods and the spirits in traditional Korean shamanism, which has its roots back up in the northern Siberian belt, by the way. Yes, people migrated down to the peninsula from up there. And so there are the celestial deities. There is one top deity called Hananim, which is the highest. Right below Hananim as the celestial deities, there are the 7 stars deities, 7 stars, 7 visible planets. You do the math. Okay, so then we move down. Now, those upper deities are really not very connected to the earthly plane. The next level of deity or spirit is Sanshin. This is the highest level of deity spirit that is in contact with us earthly human being mortals. Yes, and traditionally there was a male and a female aspect of the same Sanshin. And if you go to Buddhist temples in Korea, now remember, shamanism predates Buddhism here in Korea. You go to Korean Buddhist temples, there will be a temple inside the temple dedicated to Sanshin. And mostly it's the male aspect. Mostly it is the male aspect. You can find them in almost every Korean temple, Buddhist temple. You can also find the female aspect in some, and I'm talking like some Buddhist temples as well. I found one a long time ago. I don't remember where it is, but I did find one. And that's where I began my investigation of this female aspect of the Sanshin, and then I found out. So, we have the Sanshin as the center of the card, the highest deity. Great for protecting, and the card is geared towards healing, grounding, and the amplification of the element of earth. Remember, earth in more traditional Korean philosophy should be yellow, but it's green. And earth, interestingly, is associated with the planet Saturn. Earth, To. In Korean, the name of the day is To-yoil, To. To-sung is Saturn. So we have the farthest planet of the visible lights connected with the element of the most close planet, Earth, here, what we're standing on. Yes? That's also fascinating. That range, which also makes me think of grounding, right? That highest energy, we're grounding it here into the earth. Just like a grounding rod doesn't ground energy from the earth back into the earth, it grounds the lightning from above down into the earth, right? That's grounding. We bring we're not trying to sink into the earth. We're grounding our energy. We remain high, but we also move our energy down into the earth as well. Yes? So we're that long extended line of grounded beingness is indicated by this card. Also healing. And again, the earthy energy of this oracle for us, which answered the question of how can we live our lives more intentionally in the coming week? The answer is grounding. Bringing the energy from above down to below. Healing ourselves. And we normally don't think of Saturn as a healing planet, but as the one of organizing, giving boundaries and borders. We can have a safe space with Saturn. Yes? No boundaries, no safety. So these are things we want to keep in mind as we move into the next part of the spread. Now, so what I did when I laid this spread was first I asked the question, how can we live our lives more intentionally in the coming week? And we got this sigil, grounding, healing, earth element. And then I asked the next question. So, how can we heal and ground ourselves? Seems like a logical question after this oracle card. And so then we got these three cards. Now, right now I'm showing you the comparison so you can look at both the Beautiful Kriya Tarot and the Tarot of the Old Path. The Tarot of the Old Path is on top, the Beautiful Kriya Tarot is below. And you'll notice that there is a striking similarity between these cards, right? Okay, so maybe you'll look at the first cards for the Chariot and say, no, there's no similarity there whatsoever. Because the Tarot of the Old Path has the title Mastery, but the Korean Tarot has the name The Chariot, and beside it, it has, in Korean, Ga-buk-sun, which is the turtle ship. Why does it say turtle ship? Well, because the image on the card is Lee Sun-shin, the Korean admiral, who was the one who employed the turtle ships to push back the Japanese armada when the Japanese had attempted the first really big invasion of Korea. There were two really big invasions of Korea. One was unsuccessful, the second was more successful. The one in the 1500s, called Injinweran, late 1500s, the Japanese got onto shore and they started taking parts of Korea for themselves, but they were pushed back. And part of the battle that turned the tide of this invasion was this one with Lee Sun-shin using turtle ships to push back the Japanese armada. And the way that Lee Sun-shin was able to do it was to use these turtle ships, which were a clever design. Yeah, they're actually much bigger than they look in this card. Yeah, the turtle ship could hold dozens of men. And right now it looks like the turtle ship can hold a total of one person, but that is basically the shape of the turtle ship, but it would be much larger. Yeah, so the ingenious thing of the turtle ship is that they were covered with a metal plate. Yes? And one of the ways to do sea battle at this time was shooting fire-lit arrows from ship to ship. Well, the Japanese fire-lit arrows would hit the metal roof and just bounce off. And that's one of the reasons, not all, but one of the reasons why Lee Sun-shin was successful. He also engaged the Japanese armada in an area that was littered with islands, little islands. Yeah, not even something you could probably live on, but little islands scattered about. And he knew the currents of this area of the sea very well, and so he was able to position himself and the rest of his ships in such a way that he was able to surround and attack with a larger armada with fewer ships and win that battle. So that's the idea for the Chariot card in the Beautiful Korea Tarot, I think. Whereas I really like the Old Path Tarot's Chariot card, even though it's called Mastery. Instead of our having two horses tied to a chariot, one black, one white, or two different colors, yeah? And we think of them, our needing to get these two horses, which are very different, and maybe want to go two different ways, or two sphinxes, which want to go in different directions, to go in the same direction, right? Here, this Chariot card, Mastery, has 4 horses, each for one of the Western elements, and we've got to get all of these elements to go in the same direction, which is really, really interesting. Now, if you look at the 9 of Swords cards, you can see that while one figure is female and the other is male, they're both basically in the same body position, right? The swords are in the same arrangement, exactly the same. The color of the garments, they're both the same. Very, very similar, right? Then go over to I'm sorry, for you it would be, so left to right, the right side, yeah, the pentacles here. Can you see how those two cards are related? Well, first let's look at the people, yeah? The man is wearing a green garment, which echoes the green on the oracle card, if you recall. The man on the bottom in the Korean deck is wearing a green top, so that matches, yes? In the Tarot of the Old Path, the man is tying feathers onto what looks like a pentacle made of either wood or reeds or straw or something like that. Yes, maybe vines, I don't know. But it looks like this was shaped, the pentacles were shaped, and then he's tying feathers onto them. And there are 7 on the wall, and he's got the 8th one in his hand. Look at the Korean card now. Instead of them being pentacles being tied up, they are kites. Look at the center of each one of the kites. Each one of the kites has a coin in the center. So, for pentacles in the Korean deck, they are coins. They're called pentacles, but the image is a coin. Earth, that works. There are 7 kites on the wall, and he's got the 8th kite. He's tying up, finishing up, making the 8th kite in his lap. Look back up at the Tarot of the Old Path. Those feathers remind us of air, right? Feathers are used to fly. Look at the kites again. Kites are used to fly. There are echoes between those two cards for the 8s of Pentacles. Do you see that? I think that's all very fascinating. Okay, so let's get rid of the Tarot of the Old Path and really focus on the Beautiful Korea Tarot. And remember, we're going to read that set of 3 cards 2 different ways. One, just looking at standard keyword associations and image, okay? And remember the question I asked was, how can we heal and ground ourselves? Now, what do we see in these cards? First, we see element. Do you see element? Even when reading very basic level tarot cards, remembering the elements is always very helpful. And if you remember elements, you can also remember that some elements are well dignified, some of them are ill dignified, and some elements are just okay together. They don't fight with each other, they don't lift each other up, they're just comfortable, yeah? So, for example, Fire and water are what we call ill-dignified. They fight with each other. They don't get along together. Yes? Earth and air are also ill-dignified. They fight with each other. So we see we have one air card. The Nine of Swords is air. The Eight of Pentacles is earth. So these two cards are in some sort of conflict, or they are uncomfortable together. Yes? Look at Yi Sun Shin, the Chariot card. The Chariot card, you could associate an element to that card through a zodiacal association, but let's not get that far because that's pushing us towards esoterica. Yes? In this card, we see a lot of water. Sure. We also see a sword, which reminds me of air. Sure. Now let's also look at body posture for these three cards. The Pentacles guy is sitting, looking basically forward. The swordswoman is, well, not looking, but basically she is facing forward, I believe. The only one facing either left or right is the Yi Sun Shin character in the Chariot card. And that character, Yi Sun Shin, is facing to the left. But that is the only character facing left, looking off the suit, off of the spread, I mean. So what does that mean? Now remember, I did not lay these cards with a positional spread. Now, whenever we're laying a spread, we should always, I believe, first choose our question, and then choose the way that we're going to lay the cards. Are we going to use a positional spread? If we are going to use the positional spread, what are the positions and what are the prompts? Are we not going to use a positional spread? Are we just going to lay a number of cards? If we can predetermine the number of cards we're going to lay, that is great. And I predetermined 3 cards, no position. So this leaves these 3 cards open to discovery of a direction. And what I see is there's no clear direction. We got 2 cards at the end which are uncomfortable with each other. And then one at the beginning which is facing off of the spread to the left. But I'm still going to say let's read left to right for this spread. Yeah? That is my general first choice if nothing else is pointing me in another direction, and nothing else is pointing me in another direction strongly enough for me to change. There's another reason. The Chariot card in this spread holds a sword. So what I see here is sword, little sword, big sword, and then earth. And remember, we're moving towards grounding, so that's another reason that makes me want to say we want to move towards the Pentacle card on the right, right? So let's go that way. So what do we start off? We start off with Yi Sun Shin, yeah, standing there defending his country from an invading force. He's got his ship, he's got his sword, he is ready, he is about to engage the enemy in battle. So what does that tell us? Now, generally, we think of the Chariot card as engaging our willpower, also getting our minds together, our heads together, but engaging our willpower to accomplish something, right? So he is getting his willpower engaged to accomplish the defense of his country, to fight off an obstacle. So in this card, I see engaging our will to overcome some obstacle or some challenge. Does that make sense? And if that's where we're beginning, we can feel the reason why grounding and healing might be necessary for us, right? And then we move into the Nine of Swords. This woman, not looking. And the traditional thoughts we have around the Nine of Swords are things like nightmares, anxiety, worries, right, those kinds of things. We usually see the human, generally a female-looking figure, sitting up in bed at night with 9 swords on the wall and holding her face like this, waking up after a nightmare. We don't get the waking up idea here, but we do get the worry, anxiety. So, how do we usually feel? How do some of us feel when engaging an obstacle or an enemy? Even though we've got our willpower together, it is scary, right? It's frightening. Could give us nightmares. Even if we are prepared. We don't know what the result is going to be yet. Yi Sun Shin in this card doesn't know he's going to win. And so we get these anxieties, the mental trauma. Well, not trauma, but yeah, it's a traumatic experience. Whether it's big trauma or little trauma, it's a traumatic experience. And so we move into the Eight of Pentacles, which is what? Well, the guy opens his eyes, he sits down on the ground and does his work, does the job. We usually associate this with the idea of practicing your craft, achieving mastery, doing the work, doing the routine. So, how do we ground? How do we heal? We acknowledge that we are engaging our willpower in a challenging situation, in a challenging time in our lives, which is causing us anxiety, worries. And so the answer seems to be to focus on what we're doing in the present. Yes? To ground ourselves with doing the work, with the element of earth, with our resources, honing our craft, mastering our craft, whatever our craft happens to be, and focusing on doing the job in front of us. Does that make sense? That seems like a really clear reading to me. Does it not to you? That is very, very interesting. Now, friends, if you're interested, keep watching, because we're going to dive into the esoterica, which is really, really interesting, I think. And I was surprised at these cards when I thought about the esoteric associations for them. Okay, so let's dive in. So we start off, we're going to read the same direction. And even though it kind of has echoes of a positional spread, I really did not do situation challenge advice, although it kind of looks like it, doesn't it? Really, I was planning on reading a story. So the Chariot card, for me now, is associated with, through the Hebrew letter Zayin, because for me the Chariot is now associated with Zayin. Zayin is associated in the Sefer Yetzerat with the zodiacal sign of Gemini. So Gemini is my association for the Chariot now, which gives us what? The Chariot brings mutable airs, fire, vital attributes entering our spread. Mutable air. It's the mind wanting to clean things up and get ready to move on. Gemini. Yes, the mind who is mercurial, because Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. So we have the planet Mercury entering through this card as well. Something to keep in mind. Now there are some positive traits to Gemini, ruled by Mercury, which are flexibility, intelligence, all I Sun Shin qualities, yes, communication, and adaptability. Very mercurial, very communicative Mercury, and beneficial, I think, for this card. Because we have the Hebrew letter Zayin associated with this, what does Zayin represent? Well, Zayin kind of looks to me like a cane. It's a line with a little handle on the top, to me. A Hebrew scholar would probably want to smack my face for saying that. I don't know. It's just what it looks like to me. And Zayin is the symbol for things like sustenance and nourishment. Also, generosity and partnership. Yeah? I Sun Shin partnered with a lot of people to get this defense system organized and engaged. Defense system being the turtle ships placed in the correct place to be able to defend against a large number of ships. It's also the letter for a sword or a weapon. That looks correct for this card. Also, spiritual warfare. So our warfare is not necessarily only in the physical plane, like I'm going to fight you. Me in this body is going to fight you in that body, but also a spiritual warfare against what? Negative influences, obstacles. Also the idea of balance, which works a lot for other chariot cards, right? The balancing of opposing ideas or different desires or different pulls, tugs to our psyche. Now, because we have Zayin here, we can also associate this card with a rune, which would be Gebo, which looks like a huge X. Well, just an X. I don't know why I said huge. Gebo is the rune for things like a gift. Also, divine generosity, the gifts of the gods, yeah? Partnership. Remember we had that idea of wait a second. Sustenance, nourishment, weapon, sword. Okay, so I'm sorry. I'm a little bit of a brain glitch here. So partnership. Partnership works for I Sun Shin, yeah? I Sun Shin had to partner up with a lot of people to... Oh, I said that. That is... Okay, so I think I misspoke. Zayin is associated with sustenance, nourishment, weapon, sword, spiritual warfare, and balance. Those things. I think my eye skipped down, yeah? Generosity and partnership are associated with Gebo. Also, harmony and exchange are associated with Gebo. All work very well for the chariot for me. Also, loyalty. That works for the I Sun Shin image as well. Loyalty, harmony with the people he is fighting with, right? Also, the spiritual warfare and weapon, sword of Zayin works very well for the chariot card, especially with this image. Now, when we think of Gemini in Hebrew astrology, we get the idea of unity from duality. Yeah, it's the central column on the tree of life. There's the pillar of mercy for you would be on this side. The pillar of severity would be on this side for you. And then the center pillar, the middle path, is also Zayin. I'm sorry, is Gemini. It's the merging of the opposites. It's reconciliation of opposites into a unified whole. It's the balancing of severity and mercy as well. There's also the idea of Gemini in Hebrew astrology as being the communicative one. Yes? Communication and intellect. So it's a time for study and for the reception of divine wisdom. So if we ground ourselves, we can open up to divine wisdom, but if we're engaging in battle, that might be a little bit difficult, right? This card doesn't seem like it is a clear representation of this last association to Gemini, but the biblical twins, which we can see in other chariot cards. The most iconic biblical twin, not Abel and Cain and Abel, by the way, but rather Jacob and Esau. Yeah? One of them was the hunter, one of them was the agriculturalist. One of them is the one who goes out and kills the meat and brings it back. One of them was the one that plants the wheat to grow. Which one do you think won out? Well, Jacob, the agriculturalist, is the one who won right before their father's death. But still, there's that idea of the biblical twins, of them being different and opposite in some way. In the chariot card, through the Hebrew letter of Zayin and Gemini. Yes? So we have all of that. But we also have, remember, Mercury and Gemini, which is interesting because we move over to the next card, the Nine of Swords. For me, the Nine of Swords is mutable air, which is also Gemini. But it is the third decan of Gemini, which is keyed to Aquarius, which is the domicile of Saturn. So we have Gemini keyed to Aquarius, ruled by Saturn. So we have Saturn in Gemini. So we've got Saturn, Mercury being the ruler of Gemini, Saturn being the ruler of Aquarius. Saturn has entered the grand territory of Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. Yes? So we have the fixed aspect of mutable air's vital attributes entering our spread here. Remember, we started off with mutable air. Now we have the fixed aspect of mutable air in the Nine of Swords, which upright means what? It means heightened mental clarity. Now, I'm reading all these cards upright. This decan of Gemini points to things like startling and intuitive insights and solutions to problems. So we've got a problem. We can have a solution to it come up to us with intuition or insight without expectation. Yes? Which would be good for Isun Shin, right? It's also reason. Engaging our mental faculty of reason with organized and intuitive intelligence. Now we bring our left and right hemispheres together to get good reason and good information. Again, reminding me a little bit of the Chariot card in normal, more smith-waite and Tarot de Marseille versions of the card. There's a universal and humanitarian outlook to this decan of Gemini because of Aquarius. Influenced by friends and associates. Yeah, we get influence from other people that are close to us. Not our enemies, but the people close to us. We are influenced. And we have eccentric and unpredictable ways about us. Or we could be reserved and serious. Now, we're not going to engage in frivolous small talk, which Gemini, without that fixed aspect being present, would like that small talk, would like the frivolous communication. We've grounded with Aquarius, and that becomes uninteresting, right? With Saturn, we got to take this seriously. Stop yammering. Let's focus, right? So upright, what question would I ask with the Nine of Swords is, what idea or worry has reached its limit? Yeah, underneath all of our experience, there could be a river of worry and unsettled feelings, but some of them have reached a limit. So what idea or worry has reached its limit? Yes? Now, because this is the third decan of Gemini, we have Gemini's ruler, Mercury, in its exaltation. And Mercury is exalted in Virgo. Remember that for just a little bit longer. Yeah, maybe make a note. Mercury is exalted in Virgo. Which brings what? Acute awareness. Which could be the cause of nightmares and worries, etc. Mental focus sharpened. Which goes nicely with the Aquarian key to Gemini in this third decan, right? Also clarity through precision. All very positive aspects to this Nine of Swords. But they could, if improperly implemented, drive us down a pit of anxiety because we're detached, we're not grounded, right? It's all airy focus. It's all mind without any embodiment, which could have us spin off into a really dark place if we're not careful. And so what do? We move on to the Eight of Pentacles. And the Eight of Pentacles, for me now, is the second decan of mutable earth, which is Virgo. Remember, I just said Mercury is exalted in Virgo with the Nine of Swords, right? Here we've got Virgo, but it's the second decan of Virgo, so it's Virgo keyed to Capricorn. So we have the cardinal aspect of mutable earth. We had mutable air, the fixed aspect of mutable air. Here we have the cardinal aspect of mutable earth. But because it's Capricorn, we also have Saturn entering a mercurial sign. Remember that oracle card was keyed to the Sino-Korean character of Tol. Tol sung is Saturn. Here we got Saturn again. We got Saturn and Saturn in both of the minor arcana cards. Saturn in a Mercury environment. One of them air with Gemini, one of them earth with Virgo. Now we want to move towards the earth, right? We're grounding here. So what do we get when we have Saturn in Virgo? Well, one nice meaning of that would be meaningful effort, hard work. We might be anxious for success, that Capricorn feeling, but we can avoid that by working hard towards with meaningful intent and purpose and action. Yes? We could also do some teaching. So this is a card for mental organization. Yes? Concentration and focus. And with this card, we seem to have endless patience for details and performing precise tasks. Yes, that tying on of things to a kite, the tying on of feathers to that pentacle in the Tarot of the Old Path, right? We could be reserved. We could be taciturn. We could also be dignified. Whereas there's the focus of reason in the Nine of Swords, the Eight of Pentacles is focused on experience, our experience in the real world, and doing the work, our experience of doing the work in the real world, focusing on that. We may lack self-confidence. We may lack spontaneity, but we're able to practically apply our ideas. And the ideas we have, we value the practical implementation of them over the idea itself. Does that make sense? When this card is upright, a question I might ask is, what focused effort or skill is required now? And that's an excellent question for us to find our way to ground. Now, because this card is the second decan of Virgo, Mercury is now in its complement, and the complement of Mercury as the ruler of Virgo would be Mercury in Sagittarius, fiery Sagittarius. Which gives us what? Our skill is guided by purpose. Connect what we're doing with our purpose, yes? Work aligned with our vision. Where do we want to go? We do the work to go in that direction. Learning through application. Just the way I am learning this system that I've rediscovered for myself by applying it here with you. Yes? And our craft is connected to meaning. We derive meaning from doing our craft. And our craft must be meaningful for us. We're not just doing it because it's going to get us cash money. Although I'm not saying you should not ask for money for your work. That's not what I'm saying. But rather, the work that we're doing, for us to be satisfied and feel grounded, that we've got to feel meaning. It needs to be meaningful to us. Yes? Does that make sense? And so, if we do that, we maybe distract, but we move ourselves away from those anxious, worried thoughts that can spring up in the Nine of Swords, and we are able to ground, right? In the earth. Working our earthy actions with our earthy resources and giving our attention to that. But it's not just doing something to do something, it's doing something with purpose, with meaning, in alignment with our vision. Yes? So that our minds in Gemini don't spin off into that negative anxiety. And we're engaging Saturn and Mercury very strongly here. Mercury runs through the entire spread, but in the last two cards with the Nine of Swords and the Eight of Pentacles, Saturn comes in to give us boundaries, to give us structure. Yes? To point us to help move us in the direction. With our purpose. The rules of Saturn are not arbitrary, they are for a purpose. With purpose. Does that make sense? Can you see the beauty of that these esoteric layers in this spread in particular, how they are very focused. And they work well with that oracle card, which was Earth and Saturn and healing and grounding and all of those things, and San Shin, right? The mountain goddess. I think that works very well. Do you agree? If you do, let me know in the comments below. What do you think? If you think it's still weird and it doesn't make sense to you, let me know in the comments below. Maybe I can think about how to present this in a way that is more understandable, if that is what's called for. Yes? So let's talk. And I'd love to hear from you. So friends, thank you. Thank you for being here. And now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.